Bava Kamma, we begin several lines into the daf in the middle of a discussion about a halacha that Rava said that the word seh comes to exclude kelayim. That whenever the Torah lists a seh, that means that a mixture, that is an animal which is born from parents that have two different minim, even if one of them is a sheep, that's not included in the concept of seh. Seh excludes that. Now the Gemara has already shown that in many places, either the drasha is not true because it's contradicted by an inclusory word oi, or it's not needed because it's excluded somewhere else. So the Gemara is first going to try to figure out what is Rava referring to. We'll have another halacha on the concept of kilayim, and then we'll get to our next Mishnah, which will introduce the concept of tavichol mechira, which is incomplete or improper, and how that affects the halacha. So let's begin. So like we said, Rava said that you exclude kilayim from the word seh. The Gemara wants to know, where is that relevant? So the Gemara tries a few options. So the Gemara says, first of all, kachim. When you have a carbon that has to be a seh, you can't bring kelayim. The Gemara says, no, it says explicitly. It says shar oi kesev. One or the other. It has to be either an ox, a cow, or a sheep. It can't be a mixture of the two. So you don't need seh for that. Now, what about ma'aser behema? They show that there's no mitzvah of ma'aser behema on a kilayim. So Gemara says, no, you don't need that because it's gzeira shava from the word tachas by ma'aser behema to tachas by kachim. So you learn from kachim to kilayim. Next, Gemara asks, well, maybe about bachar, the halacha of bringing a bachar, that there's no din bachar on a kilayim. So Gemara has two mitzvahs for that. The Gemara says, first of all, there's a gzeira shava linking it to ma'aser. It says havara in each of those. Second is that the nidme is excluded. Kavachaimer, that the kilayim is excluded. Nidme is a animal which is born from a different mother, like a sheep gives birth to a cow. That's explicitly excluded because the Torah says ach bachar shor. It talks about a bachar which is a shar, and that the father or the mother is a shar. It has to be it's a shar and its bachar is a shar. Now that excludes the nidme, and if a nidme is no good, kavacham or kilayim, which is not like either of the parents, is no good. So we're still stuck looking for a situation in which Rava's drasha of seh to exclude kilayim applies. The Gemara says it's for the halacha of pater chamar, a firstborn of a donkey has to be redeemed by another animal. You have to swap it for another animal. What animal can you swap it for? So you can't use kilayim. So the Gemara quotes a Mishnah that says this. The Gemara says you can't redeem it with a calf or a chaya. That would be a deer or an ayol, a wild goat. And you can't use a slaughtered animal. It's not considered to be an animal anymore. You can't use a treifa. You can't use kilayim. That's what we wanted to bring out. You also can't use a koi, which generally in Shas is a suffix chaya behema. Actually says it's a kilayim between a chaya and a behema, so that's what it's for. It's for this halacha of you can't use kilayim for pidim patach chamar. Whereas, what about according to Rabbi Elazar, the Tana holds that you could use kilayim for it. So according to him, what would Rava's term say for? So our answers, well, according to him, it would have to be for a tomei which is born from a tar. So you have a kosher animal, and instead of giving birth to another kosher animal, it gives birth to a non-kosher animal, and its father was a non-kosher animal. So it's hilchas kashrus here. We're saying that a kilayim of a kosher and a non-kosher animal is non-kosher. It's not included in kosher animals, especially specifically if it itself is a non-kosher min. Now, the Gemara says this conflicts with Rabbi Shua, because Rabbi Shua says from the pasuk misek savim v'seh izim, you can learn this halacha out that it has to be a seh of savim and a seh of izim, that both the father and the mother have to be a kosher animal, a kivsa or an aiz. And so, therefore, we have a source, according to Rabbi Shua, this would have to be a different source to exclude that. The Gemara asks, is this technically possible? Can a kosher and a non-kosher animal mate and give birth to a child? We have a call that they can't. It's a machlekes elsewhere. The Gemara here is saying that they can't. The Gemara says yes, it is possible, because you could have a non-kosher sheep, and that non-kosher sheep could mate with a kosher sheep. Now, how do you have a non-kosher sheep? So, according to Rabbi Shimon, if a sheep gives birth to another sheep, but the baby has solid hooves, they're not split, it's not kosher. So this would be going according to Rabbi Shimon. You have that non-kosher sheep then mates with a kosher sheep, child that it gives birth to. That's what this is excluding. That's the min kilayim here that we're referring to. Okay, now the Gemara asks a shaila and gives an answer. There's two versions of this. Either Rava asks the question and answers it, or he just says the halacha straight out. The question that Rava asks is if somebody is manader in a carbon oila, so he owes a carbon oila, he sets aside a shar as a carbon oila, and someone else comes and steals the oila. Now, the thief wants to return it, but not by giving it back to the bailam. He wants to bring a carbon oila on behalf of the owner. Now, if he wants to bring this exact shar itself, fine, that would be fine, because that's exactly what the owner intended to do with it anyway. The question is, what happens if he wants to use a lesser oila? So here you have a machlekes what it could be. According to the Rabbanan, it would be a keves, and according to Rav Elazar ben Azariah, it could be an oilas oif. But either way, this lesser oila that we want to bring, and the question is, can this person bring the carbon oila and say, listen, you wanted to bring an oila, I brought an oila for you. That's it, I returned it. Or could the owner say, I don't want to bring a keves or a bird, I wanted to bring a shar. And can he insist on that or not? So the Gemara says, according to the first version, he answered the question, he asked and he answered. According to the second, he just said it straight out. He said he could pater himself by bringing an oila, either a keves or a oila sa'if, because he fulfills what the person was menader and he takes his chiyuv off. Okay, we're now beginning the next Mishnah, which discusses limited forms of mechir and shchita. So the Mishnah says if he sells the animal, but he doesn't sell the entire animal, in one of two ways. Either he sells a percentage of it, even if he sells 99% of it, but he didn't sell the whole thing, so that's not considered to be a mechir, to be mechayev him dalet v'hei. Another version of that is if he himself owned 1% of it or more before he stole it. So then the part that he stole and sold is not 100% of it, because there was a part of it that he didn't steal because he owned it already. As far as shchita, we talk about if the shchita got messed up, it became a nevela, or if he didn't do a proper shchita at all, he did what's called nechira. That's if you cut it vertically from the nose to the throat, or ikor, where you break the simanim, the trachea and the esophagus. In these situations, you pay kefel and you don't pay dalad v'hei. In all of these, he's pater from the dalad v'hei. Now, the Gemara begins. The Gemara wants to know what could be left out of the sale that would count to pater him from the dalad v'hei. Is it just 1% of the animal? The Gemara assumes there's a specific part of the animal that he didn't sell. So let's say he sold the animal except for X, and then he's pater for dalad v'hei. What could that X be? So the Gemara calls a machlekes between Rav and Levi. Rav says it has to be something which becomes mutter by shchita, a part of the animal that you could eat when you shecht it. Levi says it could be any part of the animal, even the shearing of the wool. We call it brisa. It also says even except for the shearing of the wool, that paters him from the dalad v'hei. Now the Gemara brings mishnayos or brises that has a number of opinions of Tanaim. The Gemara is going to try to see which one fits with Rav, which one fits with Levi, and how do we explain the rest of them. So the first brisa says as follows: if he sells it except for a front leg or except for a back leg, except for a horn, except for the shearings, he's pater from the dalad v'hei. That's the Bava Kamma. Rabbi says it has to be something which, if it's missing from the animal, you can't shecht it anymore. It's missing a key organ that, if you would shecht it afterwards, it would be treif or nevela, and the shchita would not matter it. That's the kind of thing that the shchita is no good. Just like the shchita has to be something that matters it, the mechira has to be something full. You learn from shchita to mechira. If it's no good for shchita, then it's no good for mechira. The Gemara explains that later. Now, that's the opinion of Rabbi, and Rav Shimon ben Elazar in this first brisa says even if you sell it except for its horn, then he doesn't pay the tashlumi, he doesn't pay the dalad v'hei. However, there's a difference between the items which aren't food. If he sells except for the horn, he is pater from the dalad v'hei. If he sells it except for its shearings, its wool, then he's chayev the dalad v'hei. Now, the Gemara wants to know, who does Rav fit with? Levi fits perfectly in the Bava Kamma. Levi says it has to be, besides for something which is it has to be except for any part. That's what the Bava Kamma said explicitly. It fits 100%. But according to Rav, no one says what Rav says, that it has to be something which can be eaten. So the Gemara says Rav is like the next brisa. The next brisa quotes Shimon ben Elazar again, and here he says if you sell it except for a front leg or a hind leg, then he doesn't pay the daled v'hei. If he sells it, however, besides for the horn or besides for the shearings, then he does pay the daled v'hei. This obviously contradicts the first Rabbi Elazar. The first Rav Shimon ben Elazar, the Gemara is going to answer the stira. Well, we'll just say it now. The Gemara answers that there's two different Tanaim arguing as to what Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar held. So now, therefore, this second, the Tana, quoting Shimon ben Elazar, fits perfectly. It's exactly what Rav had said. Gemara now wants to know what's behind this machlokes, what's the source of each one. So the Gemara says that the Bava Kamma says that when the Torah says utuvachai, you have to shech the entire thing. Anything that's excluded patters it doesn't count as utvachai, and it patters it from the daled v'hei. Rabbi holds tvachai means something which can be actually slaughtered, something which you're matir by slaughtering. Slaughtering has an effect on. That excludes something which the shechita cannot be accomplished afterwards, and the mechira gets its halacha from the tvicha, just like we said before. Shimon ben Elazar, according to the first opinion, holds that the keren is different. The horn is different than the shearings. That's because the horn is not cut off generally, especially an ox horn, because it's not used for a shofar. So therefore, if it's not cut off, then if you leave it out of the sale, so the part of the ox is left out of the sale, so you don't pay the daled v'hei. Shearing, however, is cut off anyways. So if you leave that out of the sale, it's really considered to be a separate entity, and it doesn't pater you from the daled v'hei. Now, the other opinion of Shimon ben Elazar holds that part of the animal which requires the shechita applies to. Part of the animal which doesn't require a shechita, it doesn't apply to, and therefore anything besides the actual meat that you could eat does not apply. Okay, moving on, the word calls a brisa. Brisa says if somebody steals an animal that's missing a limb, or lame, or blind, or if he steals an animal from shutfin, and all of these, he's chayev the daled v'hei. Now, even though it's missing a limb, whatever is there, he stole and he shechted or he sold, so therefore it counts as the entire thing, and the other things don't prevent it as well. Now, the last thing we saw was that if you steal a behemoth of shutfin, his chayev, Gemara asks, but the brisa concludes that is that if shutfin steals something, they're pater. Maras Takasha and the brisa says that shutfin steals something, they're chayev. So the Gemara answers. Rav Nachman says two types of shutfin that steal. One is a shutf that steals from his other shutif. There he's pater because he didn't steal the entire thing; he only stole that one's chelek. However, if two shutfin in partnership steal something from someone else, then they stole the entire thing, and therefore they are chayev. Now the Gemara has a kasha on that. Rava asks Rav Nachman, the brisa that says that you may think that a shutif that steals from his other shutif, or two shutim that steal, so we're covering both the cases that he mentioned. The Brisa says you may think that they're chayev, therefore it says tvachai, you have to shech the entire thing. And you didn't shech the entire thing, at least not in a situation which you had stolen it. So you see that both these cases, you're pater. So it's not correct to say that in the case where two shutvin stole b'shutvs from someone else that you're chayev. So one therefore gives a different answer. Rav Nachman says we're talking about a shutif that's where the shutvin stole it and shechted it, and the case where you're chayiv is if one shechted as a shech of the other. So the shechita was for both of them, and therefore the entire thing was shechted and is mechayiv the daled v'hei. If, however, one shechted it without the knowledge of the other, then he only shechted his chelik. He didn't shech the entire thing. He only shechted his chelik in an even that's mechayiv the daled v'hei. He didn't shech the entire thing in an even that's mechayiv the daled v'hei, and therefore it's not mechayiv either of them because you have to have utvachai on the entire thing. Gemara has some more shilas on the subject. Gemara says, Rabbi Yirmi asked, what if the exclusion was not part of the body of the cow? There are other types of exclusion. So, for example, if he sold it besides for 30 days, he said, those 30 days, it's going to belong to me, I'm going to work it. Or if he sold it besides for work, he sold it, you're only allowed to shecht it, you're not allowed to work it. Or if he sold it besides for its fetus, if it's a mother cow and it's pregnant, then he sold only the mother and not the fetus. So the Gemara discusses that one specifically. So the Gemara says we have a question throughout Shas: Uber yarech imoy or uber is not yarech imoy. Is the fetus considered to be part of the body of the mother as long as it's inside, or it's not? It's a separate entity that's within the mother. So if you say that it's part of the body of the mother, the technical phrase is that it's the leg of the mother. It's like another limb because it's attached. So according to that, there'll be no shaila. The Gemara says that you're pater from the daled v'hei because you didn't sell the entire mother. Shaila would only be according to the man Amar Ubar Lavi Archime, that's not part of the mother, do you say since it's currently connected, and so you didn't sell the whole thing, or do you say since it's going to get separated, you did sell the whole thing? There's another version of this that we say since it's not Yerech Imai, it's not considered to be sold, it's not considered to be something left out, or do you say since it has to be permitted along with it, if you're going to do a shchita now at this point, it would have to matter it as well. Therefore, it does count as a shchita, and therefore it counts as a mechira. So what's the halacha of that? The Gemara says take you on all of this. Next, Rav Papa asks the shaila: what if somebody steals it, cuts off a limb, and then sells it? Now, do you say that he stole and he did not sell everything he stole because he cut off a piece, or do you say no, there's nothing left because everything that left he sold? So Gemara leaves that as teiko as well.